About 7 years ago, I got an invitation to attend my cousin's dinner party. I have never seen my cousin before, and only spoke to him on the phone. I was surprised that his family unexpectedly invited me after all these years. The invitation had an uncharted address that the GPS was unfamiliar with. I used a map and pinned its location. As I was driving, I tend to notice how far I ventured off from civilization. Trees after trees, farms after farms. At one point I asked myself, where the fuck am I going? After a while, I finally found a similar address that might be it. Approaching the house, I notice how dull and dreary it looks. It's completely engulfed with leaves and branches. This can't be it, I said to myself. As soon as I entered the rocky driveway, my aunt and uncle came out to greet me. They seemed excited and welcoming. Walking into the house, I asked where my cousin is. Answering immediately, they said he went to run a few errands, he should be back later. We spent the whole couple of hours talking about my mother and family. My aunt made delicious homemade pot roast that I finished off in minutes. After dinner we played an enduring game of Uno. It was surprisingly fun and competitive. When we finished Uno, it was almost dark and still no sign of my cousin. Regardless, I had to leave. It was almost dark and I would have trouble getting out of this dreadful place. My GPS was ineffective, so I asked my aunt and uncle the most efficient way to get onto the highway. They gave me a puzzled look and said,
"We thought you were staying the night."
I told them I couldn't, as I had work tomorrow and couldn't afford to miss another day.
"It would be much better if you leave tomorrow morning. Trust me, you'll only get lost."
I shrugged it off and told them not to worry, as I'm an adept navigator. Looking aggravated, they strongly advised me to stay the night for my own sake. At this point I was getting pissed and irritated. I said, fine, I'll stay the night, but I have to get up early for work. Both of them seemed strangely ecstatic that I was staying the night. But as soon as they went to get bed sheets and pillows, I ran out the door and got in my car before hastily pulling out the driveway. It took me a while, but I found my way out that depressing place. I got home an hour later than expected. It was 11 and I didn't want to wake my parents up. Climbing my fence and entering the back door, I noticed the kitchen lights were on. As soon as I took my first step in the door, I see my mom sitting there looking impatient.
"Where were you?"
she asked. "I went to Aunt Deborah's. You knew this."
"Then why did she call saying you never arrived at her place?"
Till this day, I never knew who I visited. My cousins live in North Dakota, and I spent the winter break their freshman year in college. We were at their friend's house one night, drinking in her basement with some other girls, and it was really late, like 3 a.m. I was falling asleep, so I decided to walk home. They live in a desolate area, with lots of snow, and it gets really cold, especially at night, but the houses weren't too far apart, and when the moon is out it seems light out. The path we always take is straight behind the house through some wooded areas, then more open land, and as I was shuffling home through the snow with my head down, I look up and to the left, me 10 o'clock, and probably like 75 yards away is another figure walking in the opposite direction. I saw him a split second before he saw me, and when he did, he kind of jerked his shoulders up a little, obviously startled from the sight of me as I was with him. I laughed out loud for some reason, just from the shock or something, and gave him a little wave like, "Oh, you startled me, sorry," kind of thing. He just stood there and stared at me. I thought he was going to say something for a second, and so I stopped just looking at him. He had a full fake ski mask on, and I could tell it was a dude cause he was really tall. But he didn't say anything, so for what felt like forever, it's just me and some stranger in a ski mask looking at each other, in the desolate woods, in the middle of winter, at 3 a.m. Suddenly, a huge chill went up my spine, as a strange voice said, "You need to get the fuck out of here, right now." I turned around and started walking home as fast as I could. I have never been that scared in my life. I was a little drunk, stoned, and very paranoid. I imagined myself walking home from the opposite perspective, and the man was running up from behind with an axe, ready to strike my back at any time. So I literally just screamed and started sprinting as fast as I could all the way home, thinking that this guy could easily follow my tracks in the snow, and I'm gonna get murdered. Luckily I didn't, but I don't think I'll be visiting them again anytime soon. In the middle of nowhere, in this remote cabin, someone starts knocking on the door, doesn't say anything, just knocks. I'm not sure it counts as another human being because we didn't positively identify anyone, but a few years ago my friend and I were staying in a small cabin my dad had on a remote piece of land in the Idaho wilderness. The nearest town was probably 50 miles away, and the nearest active road that wasn't an old logging road was about 2 miles from the cabin. My friend and I had been singing and laughing in the cabin in our bunks, and it was about midnight. We had turned off the lantern and were trying to fall asleep when we heard something that sounded like something had scraped a door. We both lifted our heads up, mumbled, "Did you hear something?" Which my friend responded with, "Yes." Then in the middle of nowhere, in this remote cabin, someone starts knocking on the door, doesn't say anything, just knocks. We were both in our 30s, but we were so scared shitless, we didn't say anything. We just lay there with our heads up staring at the door. We didn't go out until it was light out again, and there was nothing near the door that would have tapped against it, and no animal tracks. It freaks me out even thinking about it.